Sit back and relax for an evening with the Thamesmen.
Hello. How are you?
This is my new romantic look, you know.
Because what is this week?
It is New Romantic Week, George. I've been really looking forward to this because there is an amazing story behind this whole week.
So we're doing a theme week, and it's New Romantic Week, and we've used our secret weapon again, Mr. Chris, who's done a little bit of research, a lot of research for us. Because there is a story about new romantics that I didn't even know existed. So what is that story, Mr. Alex? Oh, by the way, I'm George. I'm in LA.
Hello, George in LA. I'm Alex and I'm in San Francisco. Yes. Thank you very much. And thank you for introducing us. That is very polite of you. And thank you, Chris, for curating this. I didn't know this, right? So I did everything back in the day to ignore the new romantics.
And honestly, because I was a rocker, the new romantics were like the enemy.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, absolutely did everything. But this week is going to be fabulous because this whole week came down to one club, just one single club in London. We're going to put the pictures down there, but basically there was two guys. There was Rusty Egan and there was Steve Strange. Rusty Egan was the guy that did everything in the DJ, but Steve Strange was like the visionary, right? And they started off a club, and it was in the Blitz, and anyone who went there was called the Blitz Kids. And I mean, you know, it's phenomenal when you read into this club. There was like, you know, out of 150 people that went to this club, the New Romantics, Spandau Ballet started. Boy George did the cloakroom. Marilyn was there. Jonathan Ross was there. Or loads of designers were there. The Barry came to the club. Mick Jagger couldn't get into the club. And from one club, just one club, you've got all this fashion. They invented their own style of music. To get publicity, they started two magazines. They started The Face and Id magazine, and this whole genre of being, you know, from fashion to photography, all came from 150 people in London. It was unbelievable.
Wow. So was this like the London equivalent? What's the one they had in New York, Studio 54, which is like legendary club, or was that more about party scene?
I think that was more about party scene. Can you think of a club that actually had invented a fashion, and you know, and its own music and its own publicity machine? You know, because remember it started back in '78, and back in England in 1978 was like Bulgaria in the winter. Right?
It was pretty much, wasn't it?
Bulgaria in the winter in London 1978. It was grim, and there were punks. Right. Yep. And then out of that, all of a sudden you got this, and and the only thing that men had in their cupboard was soap on a rope and Old Spice, deodorant, right? That was it. And out of that, and then can you imagine 1978 seeing people trying to get into a club dressed as a nun, or men, dressed up as highway robbers. Adam Ant went there,
and men wearing makeup.
Men being nuns, Boy George being in a wedding dress and high heels, and Marilyn being there as well. I mean, and then coming up with this androgynous music. Well, then there was war. Then it was punk versus new romantics for a bit. But one club, just one single 150 people started this, and I mean the music reverberated all the way through, and then went into a house because I mean they invented the DJs, they invented the androgynous look. The synthesizer music scene. Oh man, I mean, Midure, Billy Coe, so many people came out of this club.
Excellent. Well, fascinating. So where are we going to start our musical journey then?
We're going to start with the founder.
Okay.
So Steve Strange was the guy that ran the club. And he started, I mean, Spandau Ballet came from that club, Culture Club came from that club, Ultravox came from that club. And his band was Visage. Okay. And there was one song called Fade to Grey that I absolutely adore. And I haven't heard it for a long time, so super happy. And I think Chris wrote some notes. Do you want to read up the notes on the on Fade to Grey while I line it up here?
Absolutely. I've just hit... Oh, sugar. I just hit the wrong button. Hold on 1 second. Let me see what it is. So, what Chris said and what our notes say, 1981, Visage, fronted by Steve Strange, the doorman at the Blitz nightclub, and Rusty Egan, the DJ. The real musicianship came from Midge Ure and Billy Curry, later known for Ultravox. Barry Adamson, bass, for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. George McGough, guitar for Susie and the Banshees. It's a hell of a list, isn't it? They had several hits off their first two albums, but the third was a flop and they faded to grey. It was the 80s, so of course everything was revived, but with new musicians, they never achieved the same success as those first albums. But this song, oddly enough, was propelled to the top 10 in the UK and a hit worldwide.
Well, let's do it. Let's go from the founder of this whole genre. All New Romantic came from basically this guy and Rusty Egan. That was it, the whole thing.
Right.
And apparently, because the punks used to try and get in to beat them up, they had Steve Strange was on the door. Okay. And they said, all right, you be on the door, stop the punks coming in. You got a bouncer, just stop the punks coming in. Right. So he did. And then he took it a little bit further. And then so he would just go up and down the line and say, you can't come in, but you can come in. And so it was so hard to get into this club. You really, really had to outdress, as I said, to the point that Mick Jagger didn't get in. Don't care. He just doesn't. You had to. I mean, they were the real dandies. I mean, they like it or love it or hate it. I mean, it was a hotbed of creativity, absolute hotbed. Right. And this was a guy that was fronting it all.
Okay, well, let's check it out.
All right.
Let's remind ourselves of the power of this. I'm all tied up with everything's going ping-pong tonight. I've got wires everywhere. Are you ready?
Hang on.
Can you hear me?
Hang on.
Your new shiny headphones?
I'm ready now.
Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. So good.
Devenir gris. Devenir gris.
One man on a lonely platform, one case sitting by his side, two eyes staring cold and silent, shows fear as he turns to hide.
Oh,
Whoa.
I'm having terrible flashbacks of my 80s.
Are you in a
No.
bad way?
Well, I don't know about bad way. But lots of I would, like I said, I was a rock guy, and
So was I. So
it
was
the
I.
opposite of rock. You know, it had no electric guitars. It had like synths. It had, you know, synth drums, Lin drums, or whatever it happened to be. You know, and it was the opposite of what I was listening to at the time. And but I now it's brilliant.
I totally agree with you. It was the absolute opposite, but now, and I go back, it's when it starts off, the song starts off, and I mean, it's, you know, the synth, it's just synth driven, great sound. It builds up, and then goes into French. There's a French speaker, and immediately I'm thinking Kraftwerk, fashion, Paris, high couture, stripped down Bauhaus. It's so stylized.
It had an aesthetic, didn't it? It was really about the aesthetic. And I remember there was a chap at my school who's actually quite well known now as something, I will keep him anonymous. And he was a good looking guy, and he was a new romantic. And we were rockers, but he was like a great mate, and he dressed always, and he was like the first kid at our school to wear eyeliner and things. And he covered his study walls with pictures from Vogue. Like he got his sort of copies of Vogue, and he cut out all these beautiful models, while we were putting up sort of like, you know, those seedy pictures of the girl scratching a bum with a tennis racket. That
was my mate's mum.
Oh, was he your mate's mum?
Yeah. That was Adam's mother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lived in his. I know. I used to go around to his house. It was like,
did she play tennis?
No, she was a model. She ended up owning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Talk about small world.
I know. And even back then, I knew she was pretty hot. You know.
We better put a picture of that one up if we can find it again. So.
And on his birthday, we all went up and partied at. Videos.
Oh, really? Did you dance?
We were too young. I just looked at her ass, I think. Yeah, that was my mate's mum.
I've never heard that story before.
Yeah. Adam and Arthur Goring lot. Adam and Melanie. That was their mum.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Anyway, where we're back to but I think that back then, and this is what I've learnt now, why these guys should be lauded. Back then, everyone just wanted to fit in, and you wanted to find your group, and you wanted to, you know, be a rocker and whatever. These guys wanted to stand out. Yeah. I mean, they dressed up to stand out. They followed no one.
Yeah.
They absolutely followed. I mean, you know, they toned themselves down when they started doing their music. Apparently it was so riotous, and it was so out there. And they went purposely out to stand out rather than to fit in. And now the new romantic, I think, is having an absolute, well, for me, I'm recognizing now how amazing that genre was.
Now, at the beginning of the video, when they're going into that club, was that the Blitz club?
I don't think so. They went on afterwards, after the Blitz. The Blitz shut in 81, and then they went to a much larger place. I think the Astoria or something, and that, I think it was that. But the actual original Blitz went from 78 to 81, and it was a really small place. And their god of all new romantics, and their god was David Bowie. And the track that they all loved was Heroes. And he came and visited the club. And apparently it was just like, oh, you know.
That's awesome. Oh, well, fantastic way to kick off the week, I think. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we got a whole week. We got another 4 days of new romantic. And each one of them is going to be a key track out of the new romantic period. Don't discount it. I think it's finally had its time. It needs to be recognized what brilliant musicians and brilliant genre it is.
Fashionistas.
Fashionistas.
Yes. Excellent. All right.
Take care.
Do it. We will sign off, and we'll do the next one.
See you tomorrow.
See you on the flip side.